Senzo Mkhwanazi to start that briefing at the end of the police summit in a short while. But there's also been a series of developments in KwaZulu-Natal, a province which has a long history of politics and policing sometimes appearing to be intertwined together. Over the last few days, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, clearing the KZN Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of wrongdoing in a case which has not really been explained. There have been reports that it was linked to Mkhwanazi's decision to clear the police counterintelligence head Feroz Khan in a disciplinary hearing that he chaired at the same time in that province. The minister, Senzo Mkhwanazi, has ordered Mkhwanazi to disband a task team that was investigating political killings. There seemed to be pushback to that. Professor Mary de Haas is a veteran observer of policing in KwaZulu-Natal. Professor, good morning to you. This situation around General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, it seems to be so difficult to understand because we have so few facts. What do you think's been going on here?
Look, indeed. I mean, we don't know. Look, I know there's more than one case opened against him. It's not just this inquiry that's supposed to have started with the minister, but doesn't seem to have started with the minister. But IPID had opened another case against him for allegedly failing to cooperate in a case they were investigating. And then there's another docket somewhere else. Now, I have no idea about whether there's any substance in these allegations. I mean, I know there have been reports. I get a lot of information from within the police, even though the last minister told them to stop talking to me. But the point is, I help a lot of police. I help a lot of good police to try and stay alive. And I know that there were tensions because of the Khan matter. He was the presiding officer, and some people think he should have got rid of Khan. I mean, those are the tensions that are happening at management level. So with regard to Mkhwanazi, I have no idea whether any of these charges, I mean, if they're fabricated, it's par for the course because the police are fabricating charges against people, including policemen, all the time. And that's especially with the task team. But I do know that there's more serious allegations coming from within the police themselves, like in January when the task team was supposed to be disbanded. Now, I know that Mkhwanazi is on record in a video saying he didn't know about it, but I think that's a bit of hogwash because even if the national, you see, I think Mkhwanazi is used to taking instructions from a minister. And now we have a minister who, for the first time in years, is behaving the way ministers should do. And he gives the instructions to the national commissioner, who is supposed to give the instructions to the provincial commissioner, right? Because we have collaborative, cooperative governance in South Africa, including policing. Okay, now, even if Masemola was on leave, I know from all my exchanges with his office, he has a very efficient PA who gets all his emails. So there was somebody acting. So there's no real excuse for ignoring ministerial instructions. And I know that that task team continued to operate in January. And police say that it was being funded from the provincial budget, for which Mkhwanazi is responsible. They said there was no money for petrol. The vehicles were parked off because the money was going for luxury accommodation and transport for the task team. This is coming from credible people within the police, right? There was no money for food in some of the police stations. I've got a list of them. Okay, now it goes on because at the end of March, and remember, this was supposed to be disbanded in the end of December. At the end of March, one of the people who's sitting in prison, a man called Lamini, who's a policeman who refused to arrest the mayor of Durban without evidence, he's been in prison for 5 years on a charge of defeating the ends of justice, if you can believe that. And he's got a very good history and a clean history, excellence awards in the police. Now, he went to court at the end of March together with others that they all claim these charges are fabricated. He goes to court at the end of March, and two things happen. Well, there's a problem with the whole running of the trial, but his co-accused, their family members are abused by members of the National Intervention Unit. One of them is called Nhlanhla. I've got their unsigned affidavits. They were refused access to the court. Now, this is grossly irregular, and not only with the National Intervention Unit there, when they should never have been guarding detectives, but also, other members of the task team were in court, I'm told, who had no business to be. So what is going on?
I mean, usually...
You tell me. I don't...
Usually these things, Professor, are simply about power in some way, shape or form. Power within the police service, power within politics.
Yep.
The fact that the political situation in KwaZulu-Natal is so difficult. You have MK as the biggest party there. You have this coalition of the ANC, the IFP, the DA, the NFP. Is that intertwined in this in any way? I mean, it's very hard to know. And I mean, let me bring up his name. Former President Jacob Zuma has been a major power in KwaZulu-Natal for many years.
Oh, look, absolutely. Somebody told me the other day in a rural area, which shall remain nameless, where I'm involved. Well, you know, yes, they're MK people, but don't forget they're really part of our ANC still. That's how complicated politics are in this province. So, and yeah, there are all sorts of complications in our politics. Look, the bottom line, Stephen, is that the police have been used as political tools since Zuma became president. Look, it wasn't absent altogether. I mean, even going back to the Richmond days, there was government intervention in who could get arrested and who couldn't. But it's just got out of hand now. I mean, I've done case studies of these task team cases. I mean, there's two policemen sitting in prison at the moment on trumped-up charges because they arrested hitmen with AK-47s on their way to commit a crime. Now, they're sitting in prison for 2 years because the case has been fabricated. One of them, they were on duty that night. They could not have committed the crime. They're sitting in prison. The hitmen were let out. Now, this is it. But the hitmen, in all of these cases that are followed up in KwaZulu-Natal, there are political links. In other words, the task team has been taking, and some people that have been arrested have said, well, we know that Pearlie met with Khumalo, and Khumalo, of course, has never been a detective. He's an operational response. And he and Mkhwanazi are very close. So he works from Mkhwanazi's office in this province. So these allegations against Mkhwanazi using funds from the province must be taken very seriously and audited. As I said, they're allegations, but they're serious ones. Okay. Now, all of these cases, I've done studies of the political links. Well, so-and-so was a tenderpreneur who killed X, and I have been arrested because I found out about this and I reported it. That's one of the cases. In the other cases, if you take the case of the cases that, for example, where there are people alleged to have killed a councillor, you unpack that and you see it's not without the factional dynamics of the ANC. They're very complicated, because, I mean, at the time that councillor was killed, the factions were a little different about, you know, where the mayor of Durban stood and who was who. But in all of these, the links go to taxi people who are close to government, because don't forget, the taxi industry basically runs politicians in this province. And that's because it's not regulated properly.
Professor Mary de Haas, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. A very, very difficult situation in KwaZulu-Natal.